So, fam, look, I just want to thank Crystal and I. We want to thank our special guests tonight for coming on, CJ and Marshalluna Akintade.
Yes.
So, you mind just giving a quick introduction of who you are to the family tonight?
Yes. So, my name is Marshalluna Akintade, and I am CJ's lovely wife. We've been married for almost 2 years now. December 15th will be our 2-year anniversary. We live out in Maryland, where I now have a personal training and fitness coaching business. So that is currently what I'm working on. And CJ here.
CJ Collins, however you guys decide to call me. And like my good brother Dan, I specialize in helping men grow. Male development is a passion of mine. And we just feel that once we can fix men, right? Once we get men back in position, back to where they should be standing, back to a state or a point where men are being responsible, accountable, it overall helps the family, right? That men become the protectors of the family. We become the priest of the family. We are able to shepherd and guide those that we've been given authority over. So I really want to help men get back to being able to shepherd and provide authority and accountability.
Amen.
Awesome.
Amen. So, everyone who's been tuning in, or if you haven't tuned in, this has been a series that Chris and I have been doing that God put on our hearts, the Road to Relationship Goals, which is going to lead to our live event in February. So stay connected with us. If you guys are not aware of that, it's going to be a live event. Again, God willing, right? With everything else that's going on.
Yeah, we were supposed to do this event last March, right?
In March. And it was right when everything kicked off with COVID.
COVID was like, nah, you're not going outside.
2020.
No, everybody's on timeout.
Exactly.
And a good timeout, right? If we're seeking God in this season, I hear a lot of stuff, a lot of noise. But if you're seeking God in this season, I think God is still speaking, and God has a plan for all of this. So, so we started off with this series with the first two parts. The first two videos we did, it was about friendship, the foundations of friendship. And we talked about what that means, what that looks like, what God has already said about it. And trying to shed light in areas that, we can definitely do better in as Christians, as brothers and sisters in Christ. So that He placed us here so that we can show the world through us His word. And so now we're talking about how do you transition from brothers and sisters. I mean, you'll always be brothers and sisters or husband and wife. That's it. So how do you transition from, okay, yeah, we're sisters, we cool, but you start to see, okay, wow, it's something special about her, right? And you want to get to know her better. What does that look like? And so tonight we're going to discuss the transition from just friendship to something else, something more.
Yeah, I think that's important because I think because we're so accustomed to the world, we tend to go 0 to 100. So there's really no vetting process. There's no observation or, even adding God before we end up in a relationship. Oftentimes we ask Him after the honeymoon phase is over and things start to get out of control. That's when we want to pray and do all of, the things we should have done in the beginning. So it's just about renewing our minds. And how do we do this? How do we break it down practically from the moment we feel like we have an interest to the moment we hit dating and then courting, especially considering that for those who are local, you're probably already in the same groups with people. So oftentimes, because we don't take care, that breakup affects other people as well, whether that's church, whether that is, a social group, work. And so it causes a lot of damage and a lot of bitterness. So how can we, help ourselves and each other to do better, especially in the season of COVID? I'm sure people are ready to mix and mingle. How do we arm ourselves with good tools to make sure that we just approach it in a better way?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's good.
definitely. So we're going to start it off with, I guess that first question is, how will we know when we're ready to date? Right? If we're transitioning from a single season into that dating pre-courting season, how do we as individuals know that we're ready for that?
So for me, I had I still remember, right? Brian, Brian from church. Brian came up to me and said, "Hey man, me and my wife have been praying for you to find a wife." And I was like, "Man, what are you doing that for?" Like, I had gone to a point where I was like, "Nah, I'm not. I'm saying that I'm not ready. Like, I'm not looking for it. I wasn't, I wasn't specifically looking for a wife at that point in time, right? I had finished up. I spent the year not dating, and I was at the point where it's like, yo, I actually enjoy my own company, right? I'm getting to a point where I'm loving myself. I can go to movies alone. I can go out and eat alone. I don't feel insecure. I don't feel loneliness. I didn't have all these feelings, and to have, a brother, someone standing outside looking at me and like, hey man, I've been praying for you to find a wife. And I'm like, wow, like, so it was something that was like, man, like, it was interesting to have other men validate and see that for me, right? So it wasn't like I was saying I'm ready for a wife. There were other men that saw my growth and progression that said, hey, I believe that you're at this point and I've been praying for this to happen. And I think that's important for men to have. Men should have other men to be covering them, praying over them, holding them accountable, that they're in a relationship with, right? So that relationship with Brian and other men, let them see an aspect of me that they felt like I was mature to start dating. Someone else co-signed me instead of me trying to co-sign myself. So, when I got that, things just kind of was falling into place. So, when I met her and we started talking, I'm like, man, like Brian just told me he was praying for this. So it was one of those weird things that happened. At least I say weird, maybe that's exactly how God wanted to be lined up. Maybe I wasn't ready until an outside mature man was able to tell me I was ready. Yeah.
Yeah. And what about you, Marshalluna? Like, what was it for you that kind of like spoke to you to say that to where you knew that you were ready for that, that to start that process?
Right. So I actually come out of a season of 5 years being divorced. So initially coming out of divorce, I think a lot of women just, you want to have that emotional connection with someone. You feel like your livelihood was just ripped out from under you, and you want to get back to that companionship that you were so used to in that relationship. But although I knew I really wanted that, God showed me in so many ways that I wasn't ready to even have a companion, because I still needed to heal. I got into a place where I couldn't trust men at all. And I felt like many men were the same or had the same characteristics as the person that I had been with who hurt me. So I thought that I was okay after about a year or two. And God showed me that wasn't the case. So I did try to date. And a lot of it was just casual dating. And, God, how God speaks to you. He's very gangster sometimes, depends on, your personality. But I was entertaining the idea
you got gangster angels. That's
right. Yeah. I got my gangster angels. So anyway, he interceded and like, I know that you want a companion. I know that you are in this season of singleness, you are lonely, right? But what I'm not going to do is answer your prayer for a husband, someone who's waiting for you, someone who is praying for you and I'm preparing them to seek you, but yet you are trying to have a placeholder because you're lonely.
Mm.
And so God basically said, I am not your pimp. I'm not a pimp. I'm not going to have, some man that I've promised to you, or I always say CJ is my provision, because God always has provision for you when something goes wrong in your life or things don't turn out the way that you expect them to, or according to God's perfect will. God always has a way to turn that situation around for good. And CJ is my provision. So in order to get CJ, I had to hold off for a season and really allow myself to, like CJ said, date myself. What is it like being with me now, the woman that I have become after, being divorced? I was a different woman. I had to find myself. I had to develop my own independence. I had to learn to trust men again, but I also had to get back to a place where I connected with God and allowed him to heal those holes in my heart. So that took 5 years, and then entered CJ. But I knew that I was ready because I was okay with going places by myself, whether it was to the movies, going out to dinner. I enjoyed my company, and I wasn't looking for someone. I was like, I have my girlfriends around me, which is very important, I think, to have your circle, have a community, women that you can, women in my case, because I'm a woman, men for him and his circle, that we could hang out with, that I could be real with, be very transparent with, and be able to see those relationships, those dating relationships form into marriage, and those marriages strengthen over time. So I had those examples to look at to really model what things I needed to be working on, because everything that I wanted in CJ, I realized later on, I had this whole list, and there were essential things on the list, but I needed to be those things too. And God was like, until you are what you want him to be, or what you're seeking, you're unequally yoked. So when I feel like, I don't want to say checked off all the boxes, but when God felt that I was approved, tested and approved, then, he let me know that it was time to move forward. And that's when CJ entered into the mix.
Yeah, I think it was the prophetess Lauryn Hill that said something about being a nickel looking for a dime. Was that Lauryn Hill?
And so
I think that's important, being who you want to, because you attract what you are. And a lot of people, we don't understand that, but you attract what you are. And it's important to be, something that you want to project what you want to come into your life.
Yeah. And I think that, and you guys said the top 3 things that I have on my list is, how do you know that you're ready to start dating, right? Is number 1, are you ready for marriage? Like, that's got to be the first. Like, if you're not ready for marriage, you shouldn't be, then what are you doing, right? Because again, the world tells us that dating is, okay, it's this space that we just kind of fill time with, that we kind of feel, get to know people, and you're dating multiple people. I ain't gonna go too deep with that, because Chris and I, we talked about that earlier this week, right? and you again, it's not allowing ourselves to conform to the things of this world, right? So I think the first thing we have to ask ourselves, are we ready for marriage? Because if you're not, then don't even start. Because these are matters of the heart where we're, we can, intentionally or end up breaking our sisters and brothers' hearts. Number 2, what CJ and Marshalluna said, does your spiritual accountability leadership agree that you're ready for marriage, right? Do they approve of you moving out of that single stage and pursuing someone for marriage, which we talked about, right? That's key. Because if you're doing life with real men and real sisters, they'll know who you are, right? Yeah. We know, right? We know those people in our circles that we can say, nah, you're not ready, right?
You far too selfish. You too selfish.
You think you're ready.
People like, you too selfish. Like, nah, you're not ready.
And even like, and like you said, having that accountability and that spiritual guidance, right? That spiritual leader. When I think about that, I think about Adam and God in the Garden of Eden. One thing that God, he showed me this morning, I've never seen before, right? In Genesis 2:18, it says, "Then the Lord God said, it is not good that man shall be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him." If you look at what happens next, it just, I almost crashed my car, man. I was parked there waiting for my son to get his hair cut. But I almost hit the gas and just almost like. So look, when you look at that word, it says what? So Genesis 19 says, "Now out of the ground the Lord God had formed every beast of the field and every bird of the heavens and brought them to the man to see what he would call them." Right? And whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name. So he noticed that man should not be alone. But what did he do first? He allowed man to finish his first assignment that he gave him before he brought Eve on the scene. I was like, wow. So again, right, CJ, you were walking an assignment before Marshalluna came on the scene.
Yeah.
And God allowed you to finish that so that you can move on to this next assignment, which is and that to me is a key indicator. If a man, for my sisters out there, if a man of God, if he's truly a man of God, because if he should be already operating the assignment before you walk on the scene.
Yeah.
God will never have a man idle.
Well, like what I like to say is, what do you need help with? Right? Mm-hmm. Eve was a helpmate. Right. Mm-hmm. How frustrating is it for you ever come to somebody to help them and they ain't helping themselves? You ever show up to help somebody move and they ain't got another pack and they just sitting there on the couch when you show up? Hey bro, I'm here to help. So this frustration that comes when a woman that finds a man that doesn't have an assignment, there's immense frustration that comes in that. Because I'm here to help you and you're not doing nothing. Right. Yep. So now she has to go off and do her own thing. And then there's confusion. There's all type of stuff in the relationship because you were sent to helpmate, but you didn't need no help.
And then women, we feel like, according to the scripture, we're supposed to submit and he's supposed to be the head, but you can't be the head if you don't know what your assignment is. And I can't help you. So I'm frustrated. You can't give me direction. Where are we going? If you don't know where you're going, then I feel like I don't have purpose or value in the marriage. And so what am I really helping you with? And so I think it's hard for women to submit to, because oftentimes we're submitting to men who don't know God, or aren't operating under assignment. And so then we get frustrated with their lead. And sometimes we want to take over and be independent. We then become the head of the household. So many people have grown up in that situation where you either have a single mother or you have a mom and a dad in the household, but mom is running the house.
Everything goes through mom.
And so then there's confusion with a man's role and a woman's role in the family. And then we end up, which is so tragic in our community, where women and men, the roles are confused, and then we kind of tread on one another's roles. So I think that's so important, especially for a woman. Like, we need in a relationship or in a marriage, the man needs respect. I can't respect you if I feel like you're not doing what you're supposed to do as a man. You have not made my value to you known. You have not made it clear that there is a direction that we're going in. So then I don't have a task. So what are we out here doing? Like, we're not operating in purpose. And then for a woman, she needs security. I can't be secure if we don't have a plan. Like, I don't have security in you. I don't trust you now. And so then we don't have a foundation.
It's and where a lot of people get messed. Well, not every assignment requires a wife, right? Everybody in the church is not supposed to be. Everybody's not supposed to be married, right? Some people have assignments that they need to identify before they even start dating, and marriage may not be on your assignment. And you got to be acceptable with that, right? And not let society tell you you're less than. Because if your assignment is to do mission trips, then and you marry somebody and their assignment is to be a pastor. Look at the type of friction you got where the pastor's first lady is gone. First lady always gone, or vice versa, or you run in the church and your husband always gone. Well, God called me to do mission trips, and missions is what I live for. It's like, well, maybe you didn't need you were called to do something alone, right? Some people will be, priests, right? There's priests, there's, not to get into religion, but like there's some people that's, called to like being nuns or whatever they're called to. Not every call or assignment requires you or would deem you to be a married, right? Marriage is not in everybody's cards.
Right.
And that's what we just showed right there in Genesis, right?
Yeah.
God, even though he saw, because God, he was looking at what the next assignment was. But God already gave him an assignment to complete before he even brought Eve on the scene. Like, that just blew my mind, man. And that, to your point, God is not calling everybody to be married. That is not everybody's assignment. Yeah. And so we ain't gonna dive deep into that. I got a video I need to put out about that.
Right.
Crystal,
right? Assignment 2: be fruitful, multiply. Okay, I got it. Okay, how can I be fruitful? Boom, Eve.
Yeah.
I like to see that video, right? It's tough, right? Because everybody's pushed to believe that they're supposed to have a husband to be complete, and it's like, no, you're not. Like, you need to be two halves don't come together and make one, right?
Oh, you complete me. You're my other half. Stop saying that.
No, ain't nobody your other half. You need to be whole before you.
Yeah, no doubt. Crystal, any?
Before we move on, I think what I appreciate about your story that we don't think about in the wait is the difference in time. Yeah. So you have one that was only a year, but you have the other which was 5 years. And so I would just want to pause there and encourage all of us that are waiting. You don't know what's going on the other side. God is not cruel. He's not just going to withhold your good thing from you. But there are some things that may need to be worked out, or maybe, his son or his daughter hasn't quite gotten to where they need to be in purpose, but don't forfeit your blessing because you're being impatient.
Yeah.
Because you don't know when that time period is up. She didn't know that her 5 years was up on whatever the date was, or that his would only be a year. And so I just think that's important to highlight. We hear a lot of stories where, I was single 3 months or 6 months, or, and then it makes everybody feel like it's supposed to be quick. But only God knows what type of healing, only he knows what type of deliverance and what we're supposed to cultivate individually first. Only he knows that timeline. And then also, to be honest, our obedience is a big part of that. So if you are willing to sit down for a season, if you feel like you have to keep dating, if you are allowing fear to stop you from your purpose, then ultimately you are delaying what you're asking for.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
So good. That's so true. And like you said, Crystal, people can get frustrated, especially when you're doing the right thing by surrounding yourself with godly people. You can get caught up in seeing your sisters one of your sisters or brothers who just got out of a situation, a long-term situation, or whatever it may be. God changes their hearts, and then 6 months down the road, bam, he brings them together again for his purpose, for an assignment.
Yeah.
And if somebody who's waiting 5, 6, 7, it's some folks who've been waiting longer than that, and they see that.
Where are you on your assignment, right? You know what I'm saying? Have you been pursuing your assignment? Have you gotten to a point in your assignment where you need help? Does your assignment require you to have a spouse?
Yeah. Amen. So once you get that clearance, once you get that peace from God to know that you're ready to start dating, right? Again, we said, if you're ready for dating, then you're ready to you're pursuing for marriage, right? Then it becomes that transition of, okay, I think I like you. Like, once you start to see who they are, and especially in, when you're local, you're probably serving together, you're probably doing group outings together, and just observing, right? Evaluating and in a godly way, not like, ooh, she gonna be here tonight. Let me make sure I'm spruced up and all that stuff. But even in your case, you guys were long distance, right?
Yes.
So how did you what was that transition to seeing each other and then, I think there's more to this than just meeting someone, meeting one of my brothers and sisters? What was that transition for you?
I think for us it was quite interesting because we had mutual friends, and our mutual friends had been trying to connect us. They tried to connect us. I first saw her at a wedding, and she had the shoulders out, showing off the collarbone. I was like, "Who is this guy that's around these mere mortals?" Right? What I'm saying? Like, what is this guy that's doing here on Earth, walking around these mere mortals? So that was my first time seeing it. And then next time when we actually met, it was at an engagement party for another one of our friends. So, we sat down, a friendly environment, an engagement party, but, nothing happened. And then a few months later, somebody slid in my DM.
Oh, no. It was me. I'm not ashamed.
It was like this time of year.
It was
3 years ago.
Because it was around my birthday.
Yeah, it was
on my birthday.
It was on her birthday. I sent her a happy birthday message, and then she thanked me for wishing her happy birthday. And then we talked every day for the rest of the month, and we didn't see each other until a month later. So my first time actually meeting her was December 15th, December 14th.
Oh, you mean in person for dating?
Yeah. Our first date, our first in-person date, the first time we date was a month after we talked every single day.
Yeah.
We just talked. It was just having great, genuine conversations. And my takeaway was, regardless of what happened, is I want her to see an example of a godly man. Like I want to set a bar so that she know who not. Like if I'm not, whatever, who else is not. Like you'll be able to tell. This man talked to me this way. This man treated me this way. This man made me a priority, right? I was traveling. I was, all over different places of the world, different time zones, but I still made a point to check in, call her, and speak with her. Like I was very intentional about communicating to her, and I really wanted to build at, whatever our relationship was. I wanted to set a tone and example of what a brother in Christ should look like. And so from that, once we actually met in person, it was a little bit of awkwardness at first because we had talked every day, but I didn't know how our chemistry would be in person, right? You can have good chemistry over the phone, but it may not translate. But I think we had good chemistry over the phone. I don't know what you have to say.
I was nervous because I had just got on an airplane to come see this man, and he comes to pick me up, and I'm like, oh snap! Like I'm going to be here for a few days. I hope it works out because I don't know anybody in Maryland like that. Like I'm just out here stranded. But to dial it back a little bit on my end, we did have mutual friends, but one of the girls in my close circle knew of CJ, was very familiar with him, and I knew of him, but I didn't know him personally. So she vouched for him. And the guys in the circle that I talked to too, they were like, man, he's a stand-up guy. I never heard anything bad about him. Even what his reputation was in the church. That was very important because like you were saying on the line, Dan, before we got on, like just because someone is in the church or, from my perspective, just because a man is in the church and he serves and he looks and he plays the part doesn't mean that you should automatically tear your walls down and you can just, go full-fledged into anything. So with CJ, they vouched for him. They were like, he's a stand-up guy. Never heard anything bad about him. He's genuine. He's real. And I was like, okay, I felt that I could trust him. And not only, so that helped me open up the doorway for him to have conversation with me, for us to really interact, but through his character, like what he showed me. So I had learned through many years of trial and error experiences, all that kind of stuff, that what a man says can easily get you all in your feelings and oh my gosh, like he must be the one, he's saying all the right things, blah blah. But what do his actions say? What do his friends say about him? What do people who have worked with him say about him? And CJ taught me this. He was like, you need to interview people, and women especially. I mean, men, you got to do it too. But I'm just saying, women, we are prizes as well. And we need to interview a man just like if he were going to a job interview. Would you hire him? Is he dependable? Is he accountable to his word?
What does his references say?
What are his references? Give him references. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, you're making potentially a lifelong decision. So I felt really safe in his care, I'll say. And that's why I was willing to move forward with that that date.
Yeah, and I think it was. So it's also important, right? It's telling to be able to when you ask someone about somebody and you hear good things from both sexes, right? Right. Not just my friends was telling her good things about me, but her friends told her good things about me, right? Of course, my friends are going to say things, right? But for her friends to be like, no, he's and vice versa. Her friends were telling me, and we had mutual friends. We didn't have a relationship. We didn't know each other, but like, I guess we kind of knew of each other because we was kind of in and out of the similar circles. We had our friends really trying to, our friends saw that we should connect. So it was really different to really have that, almost like a fact check, like a background check, like, oh, so I have a relationship with this person and this person has a relationship with you and they're telling me good things about you. Mm-hmm. Okay. So that, it allowed me to really let my guard down and really, open up a little bit, right. To know that she had a good reputation, right. A good name is better than silver and gold, right.
Yeah, no doubt. And so one question we have, and one question that's asked a lot is, who should initiate asking the person out on that first date? So in your case, who initiated that first date?
Can I answer that? So CJ loves to tell the story about how I slid in them DMs. And I'm gonna tell you why I did that, because I am like old school traditional young lady. But I will say, so he saw me at a wedding. I didn't see him. I was in the wedding, right? So he was kind of, he was a guest. He was on the outskirts. So never saw him. But when we did meet the first time in person, I was entertaining somebody. So although he expressed interest in me and he was my Facebook friend at that time, I knew of him. I heard all the great things about him. I was, in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm interested, but you know what? I'm committed because I'm in a relationship, and that's a whole other story. So anyway, he expressed interest just by entertaining good light conversation. And in my head, I was like, oh no, I feel like this, he might ask me out or whatnot. He didn't, but I just feel like he was very much a gentleman. And I'm sorry, I feel like I got off track. Asking him for a date. So anyways, we got back into our separate worlds. He didn't ask for my number, which is a whole separate conversation. I talked to God about that, and I was like, I don't want my husband asked me for my number. That's a whole nother situation. But anyways, he was very much a gentleman. And when he asked me later on in a messenger message, he said, hey, it was wonderful talking with you tonight. Just chit chat back and forth. And I was like, he said, are you in a relationship? And I said, yes, I am. That's when he told me, okay, I'm sorry. I definitely didn't mean to be forward. Take care of yourself. I said, wow, a man who doesn't say, come on, ladies, are y'all with me? What your man got to do with me? Or can you have friends?
Yeah.
No, it's obnoxious. Like, that tells you all you need to know about a man. But anyways, when he kind of put everything on hold, it was just like, okay, I don't want to be disrespectful. That's how I knew that he was a man of character. So then fast forward, I got out of that raggedy relationship that I was in because God showed me the red flags and I was like, oh, Lord, I can't do this again. So after I was able to exit stage left out of that relationship, my birthday rolled around and I wasn't going to pursue CJ necessarily. I was just like really committing myself to God again to say, hey, God, like I was seriously almost going down the wrong path again. Let me get my mind back right. What are the things that I missed that I should have seen to help me prevent doing that in the future? Because I've already been down the wrong road once. I don't want this to happen again. So in my time of getting myself together, CJ on my birthday messaged me on my wall. He was like, happy birthday, just like everybody else does and everybody else will do tomorrow. But I was like, Lord, this is a good man. I've been interested in him. I am finally free. And I felt clearance from the Lord to go ahead and initiate conversation. So something that I've heard from a very honorable woman in the church, she said, women do not pursue, we encourage. So I had already been pursued by CJ, right, in a sense. And I had to basically reject him or dismiss him. But when he pursued me again, I'll say as a happy birthday message, I said, you know what? I want to let him know that I am interested. I want to encourage conversation. And so that's why I slid in your DMs and I said, thank you for my birthday wishes. And ladies, I left it at that. I wasn't like, so you want to, no, it wasn't none of that. I just let him know that I was interested and I encouraged the conversation. And it went back and forth from that point to I guess it was a few days later or a couple days later when we exchanged numbers and then we began to talk on the phone for hours on end every day. So that's my side of the story.
But I think that's good. The truth of the matter is, even though you reached out to say hello, every time he initiated first.
Yes.
Let's pause on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So as women, if we really understand our worth in that even Eve was presented to Adam, then we have to wait to be presented. We have to wait for them to be the leader. You cannot lead and then be like, why aren't you leading? You can't do that. And then if you do that, you're striving. So what does that really say about how you feel about yourself? If they never initiate conversation, you have your answer.
Yeah,
it's either not the right time or not the right person. And we have to be okay with that. We have to be okay with that.
Yes.
I love y'all, but we got to be okay with that because it diminishes us when we do that. Yeah. It lowers the bar. And so I love that. I think, like you said, you said hello, you said thank you, and then you left it there. It wasn't, let me send a flirtatious text. Let me send an innuendo, see how he responds to that. Let me put something on a Facebook post to see if he catches that bait.
Right.
It was none of that. It was just, here's the door. It's open, but you still gave pause for him to be the man that he was supposed to be. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was looking down because I still got the messages. Nobody show our children. Like, look at Mommy's video.
I'm gonna have the same story. I'm gonna replay this video.
So the first date, right? Now you're in person, right? So you've been communicating over the phone. Like you said, CJ, that it's going to be some awkwardness, right? The first time you, even if it was local and you guys were seeing each other through a group setting, and serving, or just a good group of people going out bowling, together, things like that, or whatever it may be. But even that one-on-one it will create some awkwardness. Like, okay, what? Because again, if we're pursuing for marriage, we have to understand that now this one-on-one transition, your first date, there's really the start of true feelings, right? You can, talking on the phone, you're having feelings, you're developing feelings, right? You're sharing with each other, right? You're at a point where you're trusting each other enough to share your day, share what you're feeling, and things like that. You're developing this foundation. But when you come together, in person, like just the mindset of what goes on there, like what boundaries did you establish for that first date?
Now Dan, I'm gonna let you know. I set the bar kind of high for anybody else to follow me, right?
Hey, that's why. Hey,
But
hey, look here. That's what we. That's why we got y'all on here, man.
Yes.
set the bar pretty high. So first date, I sent her a round trip plane ticket and a
Come
reservation
on.
for her hotel room, her own suite, so she would know that I didn't want no funny business. So I sent her a plane ticket round trip. So you can go home if this don't work out. I ain't gonna hold you hostage, and
That's good.
I'm not
Yeah.
expecting you to stay with me when you get here. Like you have your own space to be at, and that was still a risk on her part as well. I couldn't make it to Florida to see her. My plans changed, and my plans changed last minute. But I wanted to show her that I really was intentional about meeting her. So when my plans changed and I couldn't make it, I took the initiative and was like, "Look, I can't make it to see you, but if you're willing, I will send you a plane ticket and a hotel for you to come see me." And with prayer, she had the peace about doing that. So when she arrived, I picked her up, and we went on like 6 or 7 dates that first day. I was just dating her. I wanted to see her because I only had a weekend there, and I wanted to see her as many different environments. Right, I need to see you. So we had a nice breakfast. Went to National Harbor. I took her to a candy store. We went to a library. We went to the Autobahn. I went on as many days because I was like, went to an art gallery. It was like, I need to see you in all these different environments because I'm screening you, right? I'm interviewing you, right? This is, our marriage counsel said I shouldn't have used this word, but I'll use it. I was testing her, right? I really wanted to know. It's like, you shouldn't be testing anybody, but like, it was like an interview process. I think, it should always be an interview process. Like, for instance, I wouldn't go on an interview if I wasn't looking for a job, right? And that's how it was. Like, I was researching her. How do you respond in this environment? How do you respond in this environment? We went to a terrible restaurant. Terrible restaurant.
Ridiculous.
How do you respond when things don't go your way? How do you respond to this? Do you get frustrated? Are you walking out? Are you gonna cuss out these people? Am I gonna see you lose your salvation at this restaurant? Like, it was just me getting to see all these different levels and faces of her. And then the next day, we went on a nice cruise in DC, nice little brunch cruise, and by that day, I knew that she was the most different and unique person I've ever met in my life. And I formally asked her to be my girlfriend. Like, I wanted her to
Yes.
I want you to clearly know that I'm not, there's no, I wonder what we are. No. Would you like to be my girlfriend? Would you like to take this to the next level? And I tell people, like, when I asked her that question, I knew I would eventually ask her to marry me. And from that day, I took her to meet my mother.
Right.
My mother didn't know that we was only dating for 4 hours. But how my mother responded, my aunts, and they're like, "Oh, she's so nice and lovely. Hey, you mind moving to Maryland?" And I'm like, "We've been together for 6 hours, and y'all asking her to move."
My bags, I'm coming.
So it was just what I like to say is the harmonic balance, right? There was a spirit of harmony between us, right? Just pure harmony, right? And I think that's important, right? The chemistry and the harmony is very important when building a marriage and relationship, and ultimately a partnership. Is how well do we work together? And she was just so easy to be around, so easy to get along. Me seeing her in all those different environments let me know who she was, that the person that I was on the phone with matched the person I was on a date with. So it made it very easy for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. But I just want to add, it wasn't our first date, but one of the things that we did while dating that was very valuable, which we encourage other couples to do, is to do an escape room.
Oh yeah.
Because it forces you to learn how to communicate with one another, or see if you have communication differences. You are pressured for time, like you are under stress. So how does that person how do they react under stress? Are you yelling at them and no, you dumb, you don't know, that's not how that might be a red flag. You might say, okay, well, either we need counseling, we need to kind of cool off, or this just is not going to work. So we really felt like that was a really good activity for us to do because it showed us what a marriage will look like. Like how will we react under stress? How will we love each other or honor/dishonor each other? So we always encourage that. I think that was a great team building exercise.
Escape room and some IKEA furniture, put together a desk. Right, put together a desk. You really want put together something that got some instructions with it. You really want to know how well that marriage is or how well your relationship is. Go ahead and put together something together, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Go put together a gardening box. This thing got 27. Right? What happens when we lose a screw? Are you calling me an idiot? Like, you know, these are things that's important. And to test and evaluate, right? I dated Marshalluna very intentionally. I was looking to see, I told people I was dating to disqualify, right? Just like you go on an interview and they're looking for reasons that you're not qualified for the position. Like that's how I dated. I dated to disqualify her because her appearance wise was a check in the box. And, you know, like conversation was checking the box. So I was like, what are the things that my emotions will cause me to look over? What are the things that the physical attraction will cause me to look over, right? Where are the, you know, because where are the red lights and the warning signs that I'm normally ignoring? And I through my vigorous list of disqualifications, she was the most qualified person I'd ever met in my life.
That's good. And one thing, and I love because you guys are giving a different perspective as far as because a lot that we hear about in churches now is, in which Crystal and I we kind of, you know, God put it, the revelation hit us, right? Because a lot of what we were talking about was more so local, right? And there's a lot of books that talks about what it looks like when it's local, and so it's a blessing to see what steps you guys took when it was, you know, long distance, because everybody's not going to be local, right? And so some of the things that we talked about with some of the boundaries that we talked about, and speaking from a man, like Crystal said, a man should lead, and like you did, like you were very intentional about flying her out, you know, and getting her own room, not doing none of that crazy stuff. Yeah, I got a big room, you know.
You got to stay with me, my brother.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. You know, doing that crazy stuff, right? And so even local, and I'm thinking for myself as a single man in my single season, knowing that in the past, right, I would, you know, a typical man would want to wow the female, right? In your case, you only had about so much time, so you wanted to, you was intentional, bro. Yeah. So I love that. But in a setting where a brother is local, where he has more time, I think establishing those boundaries, like I told Chris, I think the first few dates, it shouldn't be about how much you spend, but it's about, like you said, doing that evaluation, right? Yeah. I told Chris, like going to a bookstore, right? And just ask, when you're sitting there talking, you know, it's in a public place, just ask her, you know, for a brother, go show me which book you would pick out, you know, and that would tell a lot about a person, right? You know, if a sister did that and the brother go over to the comic section and that's all he reads a comic, that, again, right? It warrants further discussion about, okay, why did you choose this? You know what I'm saying?
You got coloring books. Why he grabbing?
Yeah.
Check, please. Check, please.
Yeah. So, and again, it's not about, again, I think we have to be careful with understanding, especially men, right? That our sisters, it's easy to wow them because we can easily, you know, set a reservation in the environment where it's in a very nice restaurant, you know, the ambiance is right, you know, in a very nice restaurant, the lights are dim, you know, and it's creating this romantic type setting. So we got to be careful not to do that so early on, because she can be falling in love with the environment more so than who he is. And so our brothers, we have to be careful not to draw her in to that and allow her to evaluate us in a clear setting.
Yeah. Like we went to a library. Library is free. Free date. You know what I'm saying? It didn't cost nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm looking, what books are you drawn to? What do you, you know, what stands out to you? Why you like that? Oh, you like this design book? Okay, well, what are some of the things you know, like that? Like conversation is important, and people tend to avoid it. You know, like none of our first dates were movies.
Yeah.
Like we didn't go to the movie. We were in a relationship by the time we went to a movie.
Yeah.
Like we didn't, because it's not a good. It's a terrible date.
Yeah. Be very intentional about like entertainment venues or dating. You need to sit down and get to know the person, because anybody can have a good time being entertained. Like if I'm going to see a movie that I want to see anyway, I don't have to have anybody sitting next to me. Like I want to leave and be like, oh, I had a good time. Like we're ready to get married. What? We had no conversation. Right. I don't know how we vibe. So that's one of the things we were very intentional about is, you know, for our first several dates, we don't want to go to the movies. We don't want to go to concerts. We don't want to be anywhere where we are being entertained. Like we need to have the quiet and I guess the type of environment where we can have conversation and really get to know each other.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it's important, even though you guys had so many dates, let's not forget the time frame. You guys talked for a month.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Even people local don't do that. You talk for maybe a week on the phone and we already on our first date. So because you didn't have that capability, you really did have to invest emotionally and mentally in each other to find out. So I think if we take that approach, whether you're local or whether you are in distance, then it makes it easier. There's less that I have to traverse. I should hopefully have already seen some of the red flags and vetted some of that out, because we're having constructive conversation, not just you look great today, put me on FaceTime and sweet nothings, but we're really digging in. So some of that red flags and all of that should already be out the way, so that when we do get in person, it is just about the chemistry of what we've already established. You know, we always talk about how God is a God of foundation. The foundation was set.
Yeah.
How we communicate was set. What we talk about, whatever boundaries you guys already had in your conversation, whether it was a certain time period or what you would talk about, that was already set. It was just about how does this translate in person. And even though you had her come to you, and I like the pause button, you initially were going to go to her.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that you were asking her to come to you first. You as the man were still leading in the fact that you were going to go into her environment to go and see how she was, versus again, sometimes with us women, we do too much. And there are a lot of instances where we will take it upon ourselves to go meet someone. What do you need? And we don't like the fact that you were willing to drop that money on her, not knowing what was going to happen. That's major. That is major.
Especially with no expectations, right? I didn't want her like, hey, I flew you out now.
I know.
It was no expectation.
Take it back. Oh.
And it was like, you know, for me, it was like, I felt bad because I broke my promise. I told her I was going to come see her, and I had a different event come up. So, you know, I told her I had bad news, and she was like, well, tell me the bad news first. I told her the bad news. I was like, but the good news is, would you like to come to my event? I'll send you a plane ticket. I'll send you, you know, your own hotel room. You know, everything is booked. You ain't got to worry about, you know, no crazy stuff, you know. And she didn't hesitate. You know, she was on board for it. But it was just important. I wanted to show her that I'm not a man of just broken promises. Mm-hmm. Like I told you I was going to be there. I couldn't be there. But this is what I'll do because I couldn't be there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
And you were willing to safeguard her purity even if nobody knew about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was one of the things I remember telling Dan V that, like, we had went to Atlanta for New Year's to meet, and we stayed at 2 different hotels. Right? I didn't even want to be in the same hotel as her. Like, I need to protect, you know, the image, right? I don't want somebody. We're out of town, you know, nobody knows us here. It's easy for that boundary to slip up. I was like, well, I'll just, no, it's 10 minutes away or whatever. Just to have that boundary of we're in the same city, but neither one of us is known. We don't have any accountability here. I'm going to add the extra layer of protection. I'm not even staying in the same hotel as you. I'm going to a different hotel, just to protect her.
Yeah.
And when you guys did
walk, or anytime he did drop me off at my hotel, he would say, "All right, I'm going to stay in the lobby. I don't need to go up to your room. I'm
That's
going to
good.
call me when you get up there, or we'll stay on the phone or whatnot." And I thought that was very honorable. Him helping to safeguard me and protecting me from him, I guess, but also protecting me from myself, because he knew my past too. And I was very vulnerable, or very upfront with him, that this is an area that I have struggled with in the past, and I want to do it God's way this time. So I need for you to show me that you're a man who can keep himself, and that can help keep me too. So I'm so glad that he allows God to keep him first and foremost. Because if he didn't, it wouldn't have been possible for us, like dating long distance and then seeing each other after a while, and all those feelings come together. It's just so romantic, and we didn't want it to turn out to be that story. So boundaries were so important for us during our dating process, and accountability. He had a group of guys around.
My good brother
too.
Dan V. You know what I'm saying?
Shout out to
Dan
you.
V.
Thank you.
I had a prayer call. Now Dan V has it. I had a prayer call every Monday the whole time that we were dating.
Yeah.
Our whole relationship, I did a men's prayer call.
Yeah.
I never want to do anything with her that I didn't feel comfortable sharing with every man on that call.
So good.
We had real raw conversations, man. And again, it's because of your leadership, brother. Again, our assignments change when we get married, and when you pass the torch to me, I'm still this young man in my single season. I'm still holding the torch, man. But
running with it though, you got that torch running.
But so talking about accountability, right? When you did go on dates and things like that, did your accountability, like, how important is it that they knew where you were going, and like just to make sure that okay, I know they're going here. I need to check in with them to make sure, it's a little late. Let me make sure that, they're good tonight.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I have a brother of mine, Thomas. So I can call Thomas anytime, and Thomas helped me be accountable. And I think that's what a lot of men fail to do. Which should is like, open up your life to people, right? Who knows, what I'm saying? And I guess we taught them like, growing up in certain environments, like, I can't let nobody know my weaknesses. They'll try to exploit it or use it against me. But like, if I, the best example I had was, how do you know Moses was a murderer? Moses told you. Moses wrote that. You know what I'm saying? Like, Moses told you his flaws. Paul told us. So it's like the Bible gives us example of people that tells us their weaknesses, because it can't be used against them no more, right? You can't be like, I can't believe you following that Jesus, man. That Jesus guy flipped the table over. Like, I know he told me, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, I know he told me, like, you following Paul. Don't you know Paul used to kill Christians? Yeah, I know that. Like, yeah, Paul told me that.
Because he told us, yeah.
He told us. So I think it's important to have men that you can be accountable with. It's important because we have a difficult time holding ourselves accountable, because you can hide things from yourself, right? You can hide things from yourself. But if I have men that I talk to every single Monday, like I have my good friend, the best men at my wedding, that I talk to every day, like, hey, this is what happened. Hey, we went on this date. I remember telling my friend Will, she texted me something one day, and I sent a text message to Will, and I said, if she keeps this up, she's going to get a ring, right? So Marshalluna was so fluent in my love language, right? The way she affirmed me, it was like mind blowing to me. I'm texting him like, yo, she keep this up? Like, she getting a ring, like, and sure enough, she managed to get it. But yeah, so having people accountable to you, having people that you're accountable to helps every aspect of your growth, from personal development to private things to it. Like, a lot of men struggle with different things because they refuse to have people accountable to them.
Yeah.
So,
right? The enemy loves when you hide things.
Oh yeah.
He loves it when you keep your sin a secret.
So one way that, so it's interesting, the different levels of accountability, because CJ had his group of guys, his inner circle. But at the time I was a teacher and I call myself a counselor to girls who, these were young ladies in 6th grade to 12th grade and getting their GED. And I was their science teacher. But I also counseled them. These are girls who were, I guess, who had endured hardships, and it was an alternative school setting. And so these are my babies. Like, they knew that CJ and I were dating, and we were able to be transparent where they were working out those relationships. Some relationships not so good, but they would come to me. They felt vulnerable, or they felt that they could be vulnerable with me and transparent with me about their relationships. So sometimes I would sit and have conversations with them, or they would ask me about relationships, and they say, Miss Marshalluna, what was it like for you? Like, what do you think about this relationship I'm in? What do you think about this guy that I'm dating or that's pursuing me? And so eventually these students knew that I was divorced at some point or at one point in my life, and they were shocked. And so they had a lot of questions for me. But then when CJ entered into the picture, they also knew about him. They're like, oh my gosh, Miss Marshalluna. So they had so many questions, and they were watching me so closely. They wanted to know, like, of course I don't tell them details and stuff like that, but I did tell them, I wanted them to be able to see our relationship from its start into like the culmination of marriage. And they were able to see that whole thing. We actually sent them a video of our wedding and our pictures and stuff. So they got to see that whole process take place. And throughout that process, they would ask me questions, and they would say, hey, Miss Marshalluna, what'd you do this weekend? I was like, actually, my boyfriend, CJ, flew me to Maryland, and, we went on some dates or whatever. And so I knew that I was accountable to them. And what I didn't want to do was be preaching one thing to them and saying, you need to save yourselves. Like, it's so important not to be so involved intimately with the man before he commits to you, in a sense, in order to not have clouded vision or clouded perspective, And so teaching them one thing and then having to report back to work and say, I'm not living out what I'm speaking to you guys. So yes, I have a level of accountability, like with my family, with my friends, the girl circle, but I also knew that I was accountable to the people that God called me to, because those were the girls that were assigned to me during that time. In purpose. I was walking in my purpose and my ministry to them. And I'm like, how can I minister to these young ladies and tell them X, Y, and Z, and this is the path that you should go down. Watch me. I'm not perfect, but I want to show you how a man should be intentional, how he should pursue you, how, he should help you set boundaries, how you should have these boundaries. And they were in awe of the whole process. And to be able to report back to work, or at the end of the process, I don't say end of the process, at the end of the dating process into marriage. And, I left the school to move to Maryland. So they were sad about that, but they were like, wow, Miss Marshalluna, like, you've really been an example, your relationship. They love CJ, even though they never met him, because of the way that he treated me and what they knew about our process. So that was the level of accountability that I had that I felt was unique. And so to say everybody's not going to be in that situation, but the thing is there are people in your life who are watching you as a Christian woman, Christian man. And if you don't have that level of accountability personally within your intimate circle, then you're going to be more likely, or it's going to be easier for the enemy to be able to get you in his crooks and for you to slip up. And then sometimes that translates into how you carry yourself in the world, or what your reputation looks like, because it could leak, or anything could happen to where you then you don't have the platform that you used to have, or God kind of has to hide you away in a season to get some things together there because you stepped out of line. So understand that there are people that are watching you that you may not even realize, people that are looking at how you walk things out because you profess that you're a Christian. Well, you got to show that, and it's not, everybody's not perfect, neither were we, but I knew that I was being held accountable, not only within my circle, but to the people that I served.
Yeah. And for me, it was like I have to show people that this is possible, right? You know, like this dating godly is possible. It's not a myth. It's not some theory that I'm telling people to do. Like, it's possible, and I want to be the example for, you know, anyone that's looking at me, that, you know, God allowed me to do this, right? And it works out, right? It was like, well, you know, the mystery is like our marriage is going great, even though, you know, there was some unknowns intentionally. Like the way we dated a godly process, and God has blessed us and is still blessing our marriage.
Yeah. I know the next question I want to ask Crystal, but I just want to make sure we on track. So I'll ask it. And let us know.
Okay.
Let me know if we missed anything. But so we talked about you guys dating and the courtship. So now we're at the engagement stage, to where once you get to the engagement stage, that's saying that you are the one, right? How did each of you know that the other person was the one?
It's very simple for me. I went to Arkansas and I met her father. And so in dating, I knew she showed great glimpses, and we had the harmony and the balance and the peace in our relationship. But when I met her father, and I saw her relationship and how she was able to respect him, and I saw her ability to respect that man, I knew that she could respect me as long as I continued to be the man that I say I am, right? You know, seeing her being able to respect her father really showed me that she was capable of respecting a man. And for me, you know, once I saw that, I pulled him and I asked him the next day if he'd give me permission. And when he told me yes, I bought a ring in Arkansas. Like I went to Arkansas without a ring,
The same day.
and I came back engaged. I went, and when her father said yes, because we spent the day with her, you know, we did activities with her and her father. And I'm really watching the chemistry, how they interact, you know, just the level of respect that she shows for him. It was wonderful for me to see. So when he gave me his permission, when he passed that torch to me, I bought a ring in Arkansas. And we got engaged in Arkansas. I proposed to her that day. Her dad said yes. I bought the ring, and she said yes, same day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes. So for me, really, it wasn't like one event that, you know, helped me make that decision. It was from the very start with his intentionality, seeing his character, but also seeing how he interacted with my family. Like, he really did show genuine interest in creating those relationships with my dad, with my sisters, my mom. Like, I felt peace about the whole situation, but I also saw something different in him. Like, I saw that genuineness. I saw that he was consistent in who he was. Even though we didn't have a long dating process, every single day that we talked, he was consistent in his character. So that really helped me make the decision. I prayed about it and I felt peace to move forward, honestly. I couldn't see myself being with anyone more, I guess I could say perfect for me. Yeah, you were. I know, babe. But there were so many things that I had a list, and I think a lot of us women do have, maybe the guys do too, but I know like women are really good about creating lists of what they do want. And when I looked at that list, I had to review that list many times. Okay, first of all, like, I saw that some of the things that I wrote were shallow, or some of those things were trivial, and it really didn't get to the meat of who a man is, or who a man of God is. And so what became more important is looking at my past experiences, looking at the poor examples that I have had of men and marriages and relationships in my life, and documenting what I don't want. And when I looked at that list, which was much more important, and you know, what does God say about a marriage? How should a man carry himself in marriage? Are we equally yoked? When I looked at that list and saw that CJ checked all the boxes, that's when I knew, okay, this is someone that God has given me clearance, or he is giving us the blessing to be married, because it could have been anybody. I think that a lot of people feel like there is the one. I feel like God gives us free will. He's like, okay, well, there are different seasons in your life where, you know, if CJ proposed and I decided to say no, then I think God respects that. He honors that. And that may mean I have to wait another season of time, right? I may have to wait. I can't put a time on it, right? It could be soon. It could be, you know, years later, but God allows us to choose who we want to be with. And I think that because we were agreeable, he checked all the boxes. I felt peace in my heart. And we did premarital counseling, which is huge. I totally recommend that. Because there were no red flags there, and the people within our intimate circles said, this is good, you guys are in a good place, we approve. And the people who we were submitted under, like who were over us, our premarital counselors, also approved. We went through that process, and they said, there's no red flags here. Any issues that they did, you know, seemingly see, they had us talk to each other about it. We did homework about it. We came back to the table, and they said, we think you guys are ready to move forward. And so all of those things played a role in me knowing that this is the man that I want to spend the rest of my life with and create legacy with.
Yeah, and I even to the point where our marriage counselors had the authority to cancel our wedding. Right?
Wow.
We gave them that, like, you know what I'm saying? Like if they see anything, then, you know, then we'll step back, you know, whether, you know, regardless of what happens, I was able to show you an example. So like on both aspects, right? So if she said no, then, you know, the next woman had a really high bar, because Marshalluna had set a bar really high. So I knew who wasn't, like, I knew who wasn't, like, all right, I know who not, like, okay, you don't meet the bare minimum. So I think that was important for us to just, you know, have people that have that authority over our lives.
Yeah, that's great. That's so awesome. And I love how you said that you guys were submitted to the premarital counseling, to where if they said no, or said, no, you need to, you know, take a pause, then that's what you guys were going to do. And so, and again, that's to show that type of submission to, because premarital counselors they should be people that you honor and they have authority over you, because if not, then all it is a type of, you know,
in the box.
Checking this box, I put my feet, give me my certificate so I can go get married. You know? So that's not how God does it. But the way you guys did it is exactly like the wedding day can't be bigger than what happens after that.
Yeah.
And so you guys, man, I love that you said that, because way too many people, I've known people that put premarital counseling off until, you know,
after they married,
before the joint, you know, and it's like, oh, we forgot. Okay, there, let's go, hurry up, do this, you know, that type of thing. And the problem is too that there's people of authority who conduct those type of premarital counseling sessions where, you know, you love the Lord, is he a provider, and that's it. Good, you know, and so, you know, and so we definitely have, you know, the body of Christ, we definitely have to do a better job at, you know, within that authority, saying that, do you submit to this authority to say, you know, put that out there at the beginning. If we come up with something, we see things that are revealed here that we feel like you either need to take a pause, or this is not what God has called together. You know, I think that needs to be said up front, and people need to take a pause with that, you know what I'm saying, and really submit to that. So I think that's wonderful.
Yes.
Anything else, Crystal?
Yeah, I have like a question, which will lead to a question. So we know for CJ, like, you know, how we got to the engagement portion. I guess the question would be for CJ, like, how did you get there from the point that we're just boyfriend and girlfriend? How did you get there? And then, because I think it's important for women as well. If that wasn't a conversation you guys had already, because, you know, some people will say, oh, you know, I'm considering dating you or marrying you. What's your ring size? Some people talk about that up front. If you guys didn't do that, or even if you did, Marshalluna, for you, how did you have patience in the wait? Like, what did you do to renew your mind or to keep yourself in such a way that you didn't rush anything? And that you also allowed him to lead.
I guess on my aspect, we were, like I said, we were intentional. So when I asked her to be my girlfriend, I was asking her because I was looking for a wife, right? I didn't just want a girlfriend. So I was just very intentional about everything. Did we check your ring size, or you just happened to fit the ring that I got? she wore the size of the ring that was it had to be adjusted later, but she wore the size of the ring that I bought. I kind of knew her style and what she liked in rings, right? She, you know, we talked about that aspect. But I guess for I don't know how to answer the question. I was just so intentional about, you know, every stage, right? I was intentional about having conversations with her father before I met him. I was intentional about talking to her mother before I met her. Right. I was building, you know, relationships with her family, just because of, you know, what I wanted, you know, and regardless how it played out, you know, I built a relationship. I did my part. Right. So regardless of how, if it just ended with us being friends, we'd be great friends. And I, you know, talk to her dad until she found somebody else, or whatever have it be. But what about your side?
Because he was so intentional and we both knew what we were looking for, it wasn't any guessing game like, oh, you know, maybe we'll just be boyfriend, girlfriend, or just, you know, casually date. I knew that I was going to be his wife. But for me, I guess in the engagement stage, like before we got married, it was, I think it was, I don't know. I don't think it was difficult to let you lead. I'll say that for the wait, what did I do for the wait? That was a question, right?
It wasn't no wait, Crystal.
Have a little wait. It was how many
everything
months?
happened in a year, from that first date where she flew to Maryland to our wedding day was a year.
So it was 6 months. Were we engaged?
Yeah, we were engaged after 6 months of dating.
So for me, it was.
But even in that 6 months, like, you knew that you were going to be his wife, but from the 6 months to the engagement, there was still, we don't know when or how, or so there's still a little bit of a wait, especially for women. You know, we want to.
Y'all want to get married on day one, huh?
Like,
so it was very important for me to. It was very important for me to pace myself during the process of engagement, because you do get excited and, you know, you want the parts to just move quicker. And then you are committed to someone at that point. So then you have a surge of feelings and, you know, emotions. And it was helpful that we were long distance from a fleshly perspective, not gonna lie, when it comes to that. But although we did touch the surface of some conversation, like some topics, we talked about sex. So that was important. Once we were engaged, let's talk a little bit more about sex. Like, what things what things are okay, what things are no-goes. So we knew that we were on the same page there, but we did have a lot of homework. So once we were engaged, we went ahead and employed premarital counselors to kind of shepherd over us. So the work that they were giving us was no joke, to the point where there were times I was like, oh, we might need to prolong this a little bit, because like we're getting into some deep material. So Dan, to your point, when you were saying some premarital counselors will just say, all right, do you have enough money to provide? Do you have a place to live? You know, like blessings.
Yeah.
It wasn't like that at all. Like, we had, was it 8 weeks? I think it was a series of weeks, but every time we met,
8. I don't know.
It was like maybe 8 to 10 weeks. I don't know. It was a series of time where every week we had a homework assignment, but it was heavy. So they talked about getting your HIV tests, like getting.
Oh yeah, we had blood work, we had bank statements, we had credit reports,
talking about illnesses in your family, like history about that. Yeah, like he said, your credit report, talking about what are you going into the marriage with financially. And for me, like I had some stuff that I didn't really particularly like bring up. Like it wasn't the first topic of conversation that I want to talk about on a phone call with him, but they were discussed. There were topics that we really, really did need to discuss so that we would be prepared for marriage. So that kind of helped in the engagement stage. He was long distance, so it helped from a fleshly perspective. When we did see each other, we already had boundaries there. And it was even more important for us to have that accountability. Like, hey, I'm in Maryland, or, you know, CJ's coming into town. And so my girlfriends would check in on me like, he didn't spend the night, did he? You know, like making sure that they were checking in, because we were a lot more vulnerable at that point, because we knew what we were going into. But there was a lot of work to do in the between stage, between engagement and marriage, that even though my mind wanted to rush and my hormones wanted to rush into it, we had work to do. Like, what is our legacy? Like, we started talking about deep topics. We're going over that stuff more and more in detail and having a plan. And plus, I had to get ready to move and whatnot. So I think if more couples do the work to really unpack those topics and really know what they're getting themselves into, not just on that surface level or just, oh, I really love you, I love your personality. Yeah, what about your family history? Yeah. You know, what does it look like, even if...
Well, there's some addictions.
Yeah, addictions for sure. Spiritually, you know, physically, what do all those things look like? And that really does take up that space and time and make you... Sometimes you got to pause and take a breather. So, I say that's what helped me during that stage.
And then even like I'm thinking about it now, right? The last month before our wedding, Marshalluna moved here, like in this place we're in now. Oh, yeah. So I had found a place for her to live at and all the stuff, but only Marshalluna moved in here, right? It would have been easy for the last month. Like, we get married at the end of next, we get married in 3 weeks. Like, why not move? Only Marshalluna moved in here. And she moved into the guest room. She didn't even move in the master.
Wow.
And so just even in that. So she was in a new area. So I come check on her after work, and then I go home and I was living with Thomas, and you know, Thomas will tell you, like, Thomas knew I was coming home. Like, oh, he'll be home tonight. You know, just making sure I had that level of accountability. Like, hey, we're getting married next week, but I'm still not. I'll move in after the wedding. Yeah. Like, you know, after our honeymoon, I'll come back and move in. Like, you know, just for that. So there was like I guess a month I'm paying, you know, rent at 2 different places, just to ensure that, okay, now that we're at this home stretch, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to mess up this close to like we get married in 3 days. Like, I'm not messing up now.
Yeah, that's
so good. I appreciate just the intentionality on both ends, not just. I feel like it hits home to everything that we're talking about. Just if you start it at the foundation, then it just continues through. It should just build. And so even for Marshalluna to not sleep in the master bedroom, to not get comfortable until you guys are there together, speaks volumes. We all have to be intentional in every part of the process. And I think what you said is good. You know, when you ask those real questions that are going to matter, it sobers you up. I think too many times we want to be in that, you know, movie persona where we're just floating on cloud 9, but it's those questions we don't ask that are the red flags that make us want to run away later.
Yeah. And sometimes those red flags, if not asked in premarital counseling, and again, if we're submitted to that authority, you know, if it's too much for us, you know, if God can give us grace for, you know, whatever especially if it's something he's putting together, he'll give us grace for it. But if it's something that, you know, somebody's either withholding intentionally or it's just not asked, right? Because you guys, like you said, you went through a thorough process where questions were asked that you probably on your own wouldn't have come up with, right? Yeah. Or just, again, not going through that type of process, you know, and so since it came up before marriage, I think that's the best place for it, because again, it's all on the table. And like you said before, CJ, then the devil doesn't have a foothold in marriage to say, and something comes up, oh, she held that out, or he held that from you, and then a whole bunch of stuff. Again, the devil will use that as a foothold. And so I'm so glad that you guys talked about how thorough and not easy, that premarital counseling was.
And I think that's where people, I tell young men, if you can't have the tough conversations before you get married, right, that's a red flag, right? Because how are you going to communicate this difficult stuff later? And our marriage counselors force us to have tough conversations, even down to like, what are your expectations for sex?
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys? What does a healthy sex life look like to you, right? Are you going to be upset if your partner can't meet that? And just having those uncomfortable or just a mediator to have those conversations, right? How do you guys argue? How do you fight? Like it was very critical to have. So we both recommend marriage counseling for everyone.
And one other thing, a note. So that's definitely recommending premarital counseling, but a stickler for me is getting premarital counselors, plural, that are married and have a successful marriage. I've seen way too many times where it's just a man or it's just a woman who's counseling a couple, and it's like, no. Like I need to see a model, an example of what an effective and a successful marriage looks like before me that has been proven. And it really does offer a space for the woman who is being counseled to speak to the wife, right, of the marriage counselor, and be able to have those moments where it's like, hey, like, let's kind of have a sidebar because this is something that I want to discuss with you as a woman. Like, how do you deal with this? Or, CJ and I had the conversation, we were doing the homework, but I'm feeling some type of way. You can be each party can feel like they are in a space where they can be open and transparent with someone of the same sex. And then together you can come together with those premarital counselors, both husband and wife, and see that relationship model before you. So if you don't have that, of course there's always exceptions, but if you are seeking premarital counselors, that is something that I think we took away that's very key. Like, they need to be able to show you that they are in a successful relationship. And we don't go into that. That's just a whole other subject.
Your premarital counselors ain't married?
Are you a female and your premarital counselor is a male and he's,
Yeah.
That's a whole nother. So yes, if you are looking for an example and looking for to be shepherded by a married couple, or for premarital counseling, you need to have someone who is married, who can show you, and someone that you respect, and someone who is not going to cater to your feelings and who's not walking on eggshells around you. You may not even need to have history if you feel like everybody knows their own personality. If you feel like you can't, someone that in the church that you don't feel like you can submit to or submit under, then they might not be a good fit for you. And you may have to be with someone who both you and your potential spouse are comfortable and have neutral ground with. So.
Yeah, that's good. Crystal, anything else?
I just think one last thing I just wanted to highlight is just the intentionality in the last leg of the race. If it's something that God is really calling together, you can't omit the spiritual side of it. And like you said, when you started out, you wanted to make sure that you were showing the world that godly dating or doing the process God's way is possible. And so I appreciated that you guys still had boundaries at the end, because that is a pivotal place where the enemy can come in and just disrupt everything that God was trying to build within you. So I think even for those who are dating now, or maybe getting engaged or thinking about it, or even starting to date, you can't turn the blind eye to the fact that there's an enemy. And anytime you raise a banner for God, there's going to be opposition. So you can't go to sleep the process. You have to always stay vigilant and be willing to do what you need to do up front so that you really do reap the harvest on the back end without any, having to hide, without, your example being dimmed, and then you are truly honoring God with your sacrifice.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. And again, two scriptures that I think I've mentioned in the previous episodes, but I think, well, for me, these are two foundational scriptures. One is 1 Timothy 5:1-2, and it says, "Do not rebuke an older man, but encourage him as you would a father, younger men as brothers, older women as mothers, and younger women as sisters in all purity." And so again, there is no gray areas, right? We're brothers and sisters in Christ, or husband and wife. If they're older women, you treat them as a mother, and like the scripture says. And then Galatians 5:13-15 says, "For you were called to freedom, brothers and sisters. Only do not use your freedom as an opportunity for the flesh." So like Marshalluna said, we have free will, right? But God, Jesus gave us this freedom, right? But do not use it as an opportunity for the flesh, but through love, serve one another. In the last episode, we dove deep into what love is, right? It says, "For the whole law is fulfilled in one word. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. But if you bite and devour one another, watch out that you are not consumed by one another." And so what Crystal mentioned earlier is that if we don't treat each other as, loving each other as loving our neighbors as ourselves, then even in the church, we end up having these just worldly relationships where we're biting and devouring each other, where we can't even serve on the same team anymore because it was just so much impure things that were going on, ungodly things that were going on. And so those are two foundational scriptures that I love to, again, I think if we just keep God at the center of it with the mindset that this is my sister in Christ, this is God's daughter. And I think for my sisters, like, really understand that if he's not treating you like God's daughter, then he doesn't have a relationship with God, period. That's the way I see it. There ain't no gray area. And if he's in a transitional stage where God is teaching him that he is not, again, he's not ready for marriage. So I think we have to really start, really establish these boundaries, which we heard throughout your entire journey. Two things, my takeaways tonight, but I already knew your story, was the man being intentional, which Crystal pointed out a lot, man being intentional in leading, and then also establishing boundaries and accountability.
Yeah.
Anything else you guys want to say? Any last words?
For those that want more of our story, we have a book coming out soon. Our Money Talks anthology project is releasing on February 14th. But we'll post some details on our pages, and we do have.
Yeah, we have a watch party for the launch or the release, or I say a pre-launch party, and that is going to be virtual. Everybody's invited to that. We'll put the link in the comments when we get off. But that launch party is December the 19th. I think it is. Yeah. So we'll post that if you want to know more about our story and what it looks like after marriage, operating together in love, entrepreneurship, finances, 3 huge areas, then please follow us. We would love to share more of our story with you.
Yeah. And I got a couple of videos on Dan V's YouTube channel that you can check out for the fellas that, fellas, check out Dan V's YouTube channel. We got a prayer. Dan V got a prayer card every Wednesday at 5:30. Get up and get your praise on. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. No. Any last words, Crystal?
No, it's so refreshing to hear your story. And my hope is that it's going to encourage people. It's not, the white elephant. It's real. And I hope it encourages people in this season, as there's a lot of reflection and just reevaluation of life, to just pursue relationships God's way and watch what he does. It was something great. And so I just thank you guys for just trusting us with your story and honoring us tonight.
Yes, thank you all for having us. To everyone else out there, godly dating is possible, and we're honored to be a part of this interview because I don't think we see it enough. Like, we are out here, we are living this life, and hopefully more and more couples like us will stand up, singles will stand up and tell their stories. So don't get discouraged and think that, man, I'm out here by myself, like I'm fighting this battle, and it feels like the rest of the world is just overtaking me, or there's it feels like you're the black sheep sometimes. But understand, just as scripture says, like, we are living in this world, but we're not a part of it. And even though there will be trials, God's equipped you with everything that you need inside of you to stand firm in Him and to be able to represent Him in the world, and know that He's honoring you. He sees you. He sees you where you are right now, no matter how long you've waited, whether it's been a short period, a long period, however lonely you might feel, however tempted you are in those moments. Know that God sees you. He loves you, and He has already made a way for you. He already has your spouse. If you desire to be married one day, and you know that that is the will of God for your life, He will give you the desires of your heart. Point blank. You will have a spouse one day if that is your desire, and your desire is matched with what God's desire is for your life. So always think about God's never surprised with a situation. He's never surprised at where you are. It's like, oh shoot, she's lonely. He's lonely right now. He's struggling. Like, I need to figure something out. No, like, He sees you, and He wants you to wait. This is a proving process so that He can get your spouse closer to you, and you will be rewarded. But always think about your actions and even your thoughts. Like, would I want my husband to do this? As I'm waiting for my wife, is this something that I would expect out of her character? And when you feel lonely in those moments and you want to be entertained, I know it's hard. I've been there. But are you praying for your spouse? Have you prayed? Every time I thought about being lonely in that wilderness experience I was in, I said, you know what, God, I didn't even know CJ at that time. I was just, honestly, I was lonely. And I was like, God, I want to pray for my husband. I pray that he is covered. I pray that, he is surrounded by men who are encouraging him, that he is able to wait, and that will help strengthen you. So busy yourselves in doing things that are honorable, and doing things that are encouraging, and helping you prepare yourself and get ready for your spouse, because God already has it in the plans. He's just waiting for all of those pieces to come together. Some of the things you may not even realize are going on. Your spouse may not be ready yet, or there may be some things He's positioning, even in assignments. Yeah. He's working. So be patient. Get yourself some good counsel. Get yourself some business, some hobbies. Pray and watch God do His thing. He is faithful.
Amen. So, family, man, I appreciate the Akintades and Crystal. Again, always, we love your story. We love your journey. We love to see God's word operating in real time through your story, right? And so, I know it, again, I'm feeling like it was the first time I heard it, and I'm blessed. I'm just overflowing.
See, Dale, I got the picture of you at the wedding.
Yeah.
And, I was at the wedding. You know what I'm saying? It was a blessing to see the journey. Like, I ain't gonna spend too much time on that, because I can talk for hours just to be a part of that. And again, as I think I was about a year into my journey of purity, and to know the story, right? And to see that come to what God has put together, right? And it blessed me tremendously. And God knew that that's what I needed in my life at that time. And like you said, Marshalluna, God will give you everything you need. And he gave me that. And that just kind of helped catapult my YouTube channel, purposely pursuing purity, and having the men to reach out to bring on there to share their, their stories and stuff like that. But yeah, I love you. I love you guys, man. And thanks again, everybody who tuned in. And again, this is going to be, the recording going to be on the YouTube channel. So I pray that, like Crystal said, I pray that this truly blessed folks tonight, that this is not just information, but like allow this word from God to really set on your heart, set inside your heart, so it can be transformational. All right, guys, love you guys, and stay tuned for the next episode.
Bye, guys. Thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you, guys.